You're listening to Life Repurposed with Michelle Rayburn, where you'll find uplifting and practical advice for everyday living, creative inspiration for do-it-yourself projects, and recommendations for books and resources that will encourage you to embrace your life repurposed. I'm your host, Michelle Rayburn. Hey friends, thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest to you. She is one of the youngest people that we've ever had on the Life Repurposed show. She's also one of the authors in the Life Repurposed book, and she happens to be from Jamaica. Sarah Buckland is an award-winning freelance Jamaican Christian writer with experience spanning technical and creative genres. She's an only child, a preacher's daughter, and has been a Christian for over 19 years. Sarah is also a Spanish language enthusiast, a nature lover, and a doctoral student in geography. Sarah's drive for Christian advocacy has led her to produce her own ministry series called God's Glow. It's a web show that she has, and she has guests from all over the world. Her show is aimed at reaching youth with the Bible, and she talks about truth-filled topics, purity, relevant issues that are going on regarding morality. So many great topics. Over a dozen of Sarah's articles have been published in Jamaica, Trinidad, and Guyana, and now she's in the chapter of Life Repurposed in America. So it was wonderful talking to her, and I know you're going to really enjoy our conversation and the maturity and wisdom that she brings for somebody who is in her late 20s. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Buckland. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today to sit down and talk about your chapter in the Life Repurposed book, but also to tell us a little bit more about your story. So thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure, actually. Thank you so much for also having me here.
Yes, and you're joining us from where?
Jamaica in the Caribbean.
I love that.
Yes.
Okay, so you have to help me settle because Americans don't say... We say Caribbean, and you said it a different way. Can you do that again?
Jamaica in the Caribbean.
Caribbean. Okay, so...
Caribbean.
Yes. All right. I have to...
Maybe it's an accent thing still, so that's not really...
I think it is because I'm from way up north, and you can tell from my accent that I sound very Northern American.
Well, one thing is that, one thing that's different because I've never seen snow.
You haven't?
I've never seen snow. And so that's a blessing that, we sometimes would like here. And I've always heard Americans say we want the sunshine all year round.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, we're just...
I'm in an area where we have snow from October all the way into May.
Wow.
If you ever come to Wisconsin, you can get all the snow you want.
Well, hopefully I'll get a chance to do that one day, God willing.
Yes.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, you're welcome anytime. So I want to imagine I came to visit you and we went out for lunch. What would be something you would introduce me to that we'd eat at lunch?
Wow. All right. There are so many foods. Wow. I don't know if you've ever heard of jerk chicken or jerk meat. That is one of our world famous foods. It's really a spicy food with pimento. Sometimes they actually roast it on the bark. I don't think roast is actually the best descriptor, but it's very peppery. We use a mixture of peppers. There's a pepper called Scotch pepper. I mean, it's tasty.
Spicy.
If you're not a fan of pepper, I wouldn't really necessarily recommend that. But in addition to that, we have our national dish is akee and saltfish. Don't know if you are familiar with akee. No, okay. It's actually a fruit in a red pod. Yeah, and you have a black seed at the top and it's yellow inside. But it's actually as probably you've heard, it when it's not mature, it is poisonous.
Okay.
So you have to know it is our national dish. Not to scare you. I mean, it's lovely when it is prepared properly. You'd have to actually wait until the pot is open, and you pick it, you boil it, and then you season it with onions, black pepper, cook it up with usually add codfish, saltfish we call it here in Jamaica.
Okay.
And that's our national dish. So I mean, that would have been our meal if we were to go out.
I
Ackee
love
and
that.
saltfish.
Yeah,
Yes.
someday I'd love to visit Jamaica. So one of the things I learned through reading your story when you submitted it to the Life Repurposed book is that no matter where we live, we have certain things that we share in common in addition to our love of Jesus. You talk in your chapter in the book about being very busy. And just by reading your bio, I can see that you do a lot. You're working on your PhD, or did you finish?
Well, I gave in my dissertation, I submitted, and I'm actually waiting for my defense. Okay. So
So you have several degrees. You have the PhD that's almost finished. Yeah. You have been working in many ministries. What happened to bring you to a place where your body just said no more of this?
As I wrote in the book, it's really... that point was at May 2017. I was near the point of my upgrade, so I was actually still in the master's section of the program. As I had written, I was in the midst of doing my ministry, which just really started a few months before. And I had actually been planning to do some other, I was conceptualizing a business idea. I was also preparing for a conference, seminar, presentation. So I had all of these things going on at the same time. Of course, my family, my dad is a minister. We do outreach. And so, we were always active, even on the weekends. So May 7, that was a Sunday, 2017. I had been just finishing up some work in preparation for that presentation. And I went to bed thinking that, okay, all right, I'm going to bed. I think it was like some minutes to 11 p.m. That was like early for me. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's a reasonable time. But few minutes after that, I never felt something like that before. Like a very intense pressure came in the side of my head. My blood pressure was just fluctuating. Of course, I wouldn't have known in the bed it was blood pressure, but after that, I had checked because I did have a sphygmomanometer at my house, but I felt my heart beating irregularly. Like it was just my blood pressure. After I checked, it was the next day. The bottom number was 40. That was very low.
Yes, and
then it went up high. The top number was like 150 over, like 150 something. And then, so in the aftermath of that event, I actually thought it was a stroke. I mean, I was 23, but that's very, very young for anyone to really get a stroke. So I thank God when I did the tests, they didn't actually find something. So I know it was really extreme exhaustion. And I do thank God that at least even though it was hurtful, painful, I think that was a warning before anything worse would happen, So like in the aftermath, I remember lying in bed, just even thinking, how did I have all of this energy to be going up and down, even going shopping? I was thinking back on those things and thinking that, will I be able to do this again? Physically, I would be trying to, seeing what I could do. And I'd be sitting up, talking to my parents. Just a 2-minute conversation would just exhaust me. And I was really wondering, would I be able to get back to normal, So the recovery process was really slow. Well, it could have been worse. It was, but I learned a lot during that time, in bed for weeks, actually 4 weeks without doing anything. I didn't completely recover until several months after, but I actually started to get back slowly. But during that time, it's like it just hit me. In the past, I've won trophies, won competitions and things. And I was thinking to myself, these things that you fuss over in life so much, at the end of the day, it doesn't really it's not as valuable as you would have thought that they are. What really matters is the time that you spend with God. And even though it's not that I was not having God in the center of my life before, but there is a difference in terms of how the type of feeding to your spirit and replenishing in your soul when you actually spend quiet time with God than when you think, okay, I'm busy with the ministry, I'm going to be just running up and down. It's not, just like you see in Genesis, God made the seventh day to rest. It's not necessarily that we're going to observe the Sabbath, but, I believe that God placed these markers and in his word to teach us as an object lesson for what we should do in our lives. So, I learned about the fragility of life. I mean, even if you're in your early 20s, don't think that you're invincible. Don't rely on yourself. As I mentioned, getting your priorities right and having good stewardship. I also believe it was a lesson in humility, no matter what accomplishments that you have or what your goals are, that your success is not dependent on your strength and your efforts. So,
Yeah, so I can relate to that when you're going and going and going, and I keep pushing myself. And just this week, I had that happen where it had been days and days of working on this book project and sending out the emails and planning out various things. So I took a day and I went for a walk, and I sat and played piano and sang a worship song and did things that I hadn't touched a piano in a long time. What are some of the things that you do when you need to have that Sabbath time? It doesn't have to, like you said, be on Sunday. It could be any day of the week where we take that time. Yeah. How do you replenish?
I had begun to set aside a specific time in the day that I would just go in bed and, face a window, because I love nature. My field is geography. And just listen to worship songs and just try and meditate, think about what God has done in your life, because one thing that happens with me sometimes is racing thoughts. I'll start to think, okay, what do I have to have to do this? When am I going to be able to finish this? And planning all the time, even when I'm resting sometimes. So it's important for me to try and deliberately get myself in a mood that, all right, God, this is what I have to do, but in this space and in this time, I just want to focus on you. I also like gardening, so I have a little garden. Actually, a pineapple is growing. I'm hopeful it will we'll be able to reap it soon. So I do love gardening. I like listening to music. Just having quiet time with God to replenish my energies. And I like writing as well. I write poetry. I write short stories as well. I'm still just in the beginning of that career, but I do find that it is releasing for me. It is very fulfilling as well. So those are the things that I do.
Yeah. So what has changed now that you do rest more? You are more intentional about that. How has that helped you physically and spiritually?
Well, definitely, thank God I haven't had a repeat of that incident. It's not that I am perfect, definitely not. As we have discussed before off air, like this week was quite difficult for me because I'm working on a project for my ministry at this point. But I still have that incident in the back of my head. It has really made me more aware of the signs of when I am really pushing myself to the limit. So I've learned to, recognize the signs of where I'm getting anxious. Okay, my muscles are tense and things like that. So I have, tried to set aside, be deliberate. I found that was very important for me to do, to be deliberate in my planning. So since I love to plan, and since I'm planning my work, I make sure I try to plan rest time. And as I said, I have a way to improve, because I do I do believe that I have gone back to pushing myself somewhat, but that's a journey. It's a journey, but it has definitely made me realize that self-care is a priority as well, to help you in the ministry.
Yes.
Because your body is the temple of God.
That's true. Exactly. So I like that you said that it's a process and we have to keep reevaluating, because I think there are times where we want everything to be where this happened, and now it's fixed. And that isn't really how our life goes. So when you do get involved in the ministry and there's more work and you start pushing yourself, that idea of stepping back again and reevaluating is really healthy. So as you look forward to the next few weeks, because you know you have so many things going on, what kinds of things have you scheduled that are part of your self-care?
Well, I mean, as I said, I have been doing gardening, and so I do have some seedlings. So I have some callaloo that I actually want to plant. I have a few pineapple tops as well. I love pineapples. So I do hope to sometimes just get some full rest, full sleep without even planning activities or anything. But that's really what I have in mind next few weeks. I mean, God has taught me so many different lessons in other areas of my life. You know, I'll maybe go into this other story. 2011 was another very difficult year for my family in general. Yeah, tell me about that. Late 2010, my grandmother who lived with us, my maternal grandmother, she passed on. That was actually the day before my last 2 exams. We have some Caribbean regional exams to actually help us matriculate into university. So incidentally, it was my geography and my Spanish exam, which is the field that I am in. So it was or my core subject. It happened in our home. She passed in our home. So it was really a very big tragedy for us. We took our time to adjust, but I had blood pressure problems during that time as well, and pneumonia. But in addition to that, because my grandmother was not well for some months before, my parents had a lot of, they had to pay some high hospital fees and actually went in debt. So during that time, we actually were very low financially. I mean, like, I remember, for example, sometimes we're having to go to my paternal grandmother's house, hoping to, get some dinner. I remember us having to, sometimes, even share one egg among of us, because I'm an only child, things like that. But during that time, even with the lows and the sicknesses and the, the grieving and all of these things, I learned that, all of this, whatever you have to be grateful. It really brings you to a point where you're forced to be grateful for whatever you have. Resourcefulness was another thing. Resourcefulness, because, sometimes maybe even in the American culture, I know that, sometimes you might throw away things and throw away food that you have and things. But it when you're low, you really realize, okay, how can I make this stretch? I've learned new recipes in the process. I've learned, things like that. So, also I realized that, since then, when you see people who are in need, it flashes back that, at the point in your life when you were in need, it really fuels compassion. So, sometimes God makes you go through a time that it cultivates these values in you to, help you be more effective in reaching out to people and actually be able to empathize, to put yourself in their place and actually reach out more in love than when you really you think you've never actually been there. But when you've been there, you know what it is like, and
So were there other ways where you saw God meet your needs when you were in that time?
I mean, people did reach out to us, so I believe that God used them in that way to, show that, yes, I do care for you. I'll be there with you even in the valley of the shadow of death, even in times that are low, and they will get their blessing by blessing us, and that is that's a beauty of all of this. Even in pain, you have blessings, you are blessed, you get the opportunity to bless others as well.
Yeah. You have a lot of wisdom for somebody who's so young, and you also are involved in a lot of ministry. So how did you become involved in serving in ministry? Because you founded a ministry, haven't you?
Yes. So, from when I was very young, I actually got baptized when I was 8 years old. So, I think God just put it in my heart to want to serve others. I remember when I was much younger trying to draft little booklets about, against evolution, things about God.
So you've been writing forever.
I have been. I mean, I still have some of these things, notes that I had from when I was like,
I love that.
8, 9. Yeah. So, I think that has been in my heart from a while. So, learning new skills and then learning how to do things in a bigger way. I try to scale up. My parents helped as well because, as I said, my dad is a minister. He does outreach. So their example had also helped me to cultivate that type of outlook. So we do visit elderly homes as well. I mean, since coronavirus time, unfortunately, we're not able to go there, but that was our core ministry as well. Many of these people are shut in. They're not able to go to church and not able to, have the outreach that they need to. But so we would come and, sing songs and have our Bible studies. My mom also, gives out Bibles to persons for free. So we actually try and purchase Bibles, like a Bible, at least one Bible per month, and just give out for free to persons. Yeah. So that's I believe that both my I think it's both an internal thing that I just have that drive that God had put into me, as well as my parents were really instrumental in helping to cultivate that. And to just come onto that point as well, regarding examples and importance of that, I wanted to really talk about purity as well, because it's another topic that really is close to my heart. I find that a lot of Christians, we take our calling to be pure very lightly. Yeah. Even in the church. So like in Jamaica, we have about 90% of all children that are born out of wedlock. Wow. Most children are not born in a stable home with married parents. And we actually have the 3rd highest teen pregnancy rate in the Caribbean. So that is actually a problem. And, you find a lot of unattached youth, even those in the church, especially when they go off to college or university, they get themselves in trouble, they get pregnant and things like that. So I've actually seen many of my friends, unfortunately, end up being single moms. And I've seen the hurt. And so it's something that, I've had to make a personal decision to say, no, I'm going to try and be a different person. It was also helpful. My mom had been very instrumental because she opened up to me from early, telling me, how she kept her virginity. She kept herself pure until marriage. And I also find that it's very important to own that for yourself. Yeah. So, because there will be a lot of pressure, even, when your parents are not around, when your mentors are not around, you have to make sure you make that decision. And that's what I have done. So, I just wanted to send a message to youths and even older folks that in this world, even in the 21st century, you can live a happy life and a fulfilled life without indulging, in sexual immorality. Because I am actually 27 and I am a virgin. I've actually
good for you.
Thank God. I've actually, even kept myself, like my lips, like I have never kissed as well. Okay. I mean, these are personal details, but I'm just speaking this to let people know, because sometimes, when people don't speak about these things, they think, okay, I'm alone. This is crazy. Nobody does this. I'm not saying that this is something that everyone must do about, especially with the, not choosing not to kiss or anything. But I think that it's important that you have your standard and you realize that, even though you'll have struggles with loneliness sometimes, of course, everyone does. But from what I've seen, the heartache of regret would be like much worse than, just waiting until God brings whatever he has for you.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, because it's something where you're having to walk against the culture when it comes to the number of people. And I know that was a decision that both of my sons had made as well. They're both married now. Okay. That's difficult when all of your friends are in relationships. They didn't date in high school either, because they wanted to not date until they were thinking about marriage. And they both ended up marrying the only person they ever dated. So
that's so lovely.
It's unusual in the American culture too. And so how have you dealt with like the pressure of friends who tell you that's not the way to go, even though that's what God's word says?
Oh, well, as I've said, writing is a big platform, or maybe I shouldn't use that word. It's a vent for me.
Yeah.
I am privileged to actually have a good support system with my parents. Praying and having family devotions in the nights, and my mother and I are so close that we actually, I'm able to share with her whenever I find myself struggling with things. But still I don't want to paint a fancy picture, but like many times you're actually forced to not have many friends because they'll look at you as being, okay, you're showed off, you're different, you don't fit in, but God will lead you to the right friends if that's if that's the value system that your friends have. I mean, it's not that you're gonna shun them. They shun you, that's on them, but God will provide, because He has provided for me. I have my network of friends. We talk. I have my close circle who have also waited until marriage as well. One of my close friends got married late 2019, so a little over a year ago, and she waited as well. So it's good to choose your friends wisely.
It is.
Choose your support system, and just keep close to God and know that this is for God. This is not for pleasing man. This is also for my own good, because His word is for my own good. His commands are for my own good.
Yes. So mature to hear you say that. I got married at 20 years old, which is unusual. Most people get married later than that. I've been married for 31 years. And my husband and I both talk about that. And this is for the listeners out there who are like Sarah, waiting. My husband and I both talk often about how it is to know that we waited until we were married and that we've only been with each other. There's no baggage from the past that came. And this is not to shame anybody who has that, because I know there are people who like, that's the beauty of a repurposed life, is that if you didn't do it that way, God can give you a reset point. He can heal that too.
Definitely, yes.
But if you don't have to walk that path, and if you don't have to have that baggage, and you are staying sexually pure, stick with it, because you will not regret waiting and knowing that you only have been with one another. It's a spiritual connection, but there's also a physical benefit to waiting as well.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it's not easy, as it's many things that are good, but you just hold on to God's promises whenever the time gets tough. Get people who have similar values to rally around you, and I've seen God work through difficulties to help with everything. So He is faithful.
You've talked about a resource. You've told me about it, that you have a resource on your website. I'd like you to tell the listeners a little bit about what you have for them if they go to your website.
On that website, in addition to a blog, I have a few brochures on different topics on Bible evidences. So one is giving evidences as to how do we know that God exists. Many people actually legitimately have that problem, especially because of our educational system, which is so secular. Many children are groomed from early to, doubt. But questions that are genuine are healthy, and we need to have answers to them. So that's why I decided, okay, having classmates that ask me these questions, and I've tried to do research on my own. I compiled them in some brochures. So one is dealing with that. Another one is looking at how can we trust the Bible? How do we know the Bible is true? And that one, I looked at some interesting things that, are written in the Bible, like that are scientific foreknowledge, things that scientists at that time would have never known about. For example, that life is in the blood in Leviticus. In, even as recently as 1799 with George Washington, I've read that his doctors actually bled him to death because they thought he had bad blood when he had pneumonia. But modern science caught up with what was written in the Bible, like in the 1800s, to actually realize that, yes, the life of the person is in the blood. You cannot just go and bleed someone to take out their bad blood. You're actually killing them. There are many others. There are springs in the oceans. That was written in Job. That was not discovered until the 1970s. So all of that information, the websites, the articles, that scientific journal articles are actually cited at the bottom of those brochures that you can actually look. So that is one. Also, there's another tract called God Cares for You, which is really dealing with the topic of why God allows suffering. To actually look at, similar to our prayer program here, Michelle, about life repurposed, how God can use suffering for his glory and to actually cultivate something even greater for you. I also have made a few bookmarkers. I hope I've uploaded them. If not, please look out for that. So I have 2 bookmarkers that are really just encouragements. 3 keys to success: trust God, remain focused, aim for your best. So try TRY your best. So little gems and things that you can distribute. It's completely free. So I think Michelle is going to put the website there. So feel free to visit.
In the show notes to that so people can get that.
There's also my YouTube channel, Chosen to Glow Ministries. If you just type Chosen to Glow Ministries on YouTube, you'll find we have videos. Can feel free to download and redistribute if you need.
Yeah, thank you so much for putting those resources together, because even the ones on questioning faith and is the Bible is real, even young people who have grown up in the church sometimes come out of the church, go off to college, and ask those same questions. They're like, did everything my parents teach me, is that real? Is it not? And they're asking those. So it's a fantastic resource.
Yeah. I find it to be very important because unfortunately many times pastors don't deal with these topics on the pulpit. They just assume that, yes, you believe, you come to your church, you believe, and just have faith. But because this generation is so exposed, and the next one that's coming up after me, they're so exposed to many things, and doubt will definitely creep in. And even if you're not a doubter yourself, it's good to be equipped to know how to answer, to help even your child, be able to answer the tough questions that even their teacher might come. And because even in my university, I've heard people say, okay, their lecturer came in front of the class, declared they're an atheist. These are people we're looking up to. They're my teacher. Don't you know? We are the PhD of it. Yeah, all of these things. So it's very important that you equip yourself and know God for yourself. Personal testimonies to me are some of the best evidences of God's existence. But, there's so much around you, as what Romans 1 verse 20 says, that the invisible things of God before the creation of the world are clearly seen. They're perceived in the things that he has made. So people are without excuse.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. I love your message. I love it that you're in the book. Thank you for submitting your story to Life Repurposed. Is there anything that you'd like to leave with our listeners before we close?
Right. Well, I would just encourage everyone to, no matter what you're going through right now, that God has a purpose even in your suffering. I know that it might sound cliche. You might have heard people say it, but it's something that I have lived through. I have personally experienced God's work. So just like to encourage you to just hold on, to persevere. Especially, also if you're a youth, it's never too late, even if you have strayed or done anything that you think God is angry with you. God is waiting with open arms, and the best life is in God. And so I just encourage you, wherever you are, that now is the best time to come to God. Don't wait until you're old, because life is not guaranteed.
That's right, exactly.
Yes. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. It's great to be able to connect. I hope you enjoyed listening to Sarah's wisdom coming all the way from Jamaica. Thank you for bearing with us with a few audio glitches that we had just because of the connection, just connecting overseas by Zoom. You have some of that little internet glitches and things that come in there. You will find the show notes for this episode at michellerayburn.com/103. I will link to Sarah's website there and those resources that she talked about. I also invite you to join our Facebook community if you haven't done that yet, where you can interact with the topics each week and get to know other people who are living their life repurposed. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you next week. You've been listening to Life Repurposed with Michelle Rayburn. Check out tips, resources, and inspiration at michellerayburn.com. I'd love it if you would subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or Spotify. I'd also love it if you would like, review, and share the information about this podcast with your friends. Thank you so much for listening.